Discovered, the hidden love of a duke and his unexpectedly beautiful fiancée, an inspiring 5-year journey through love and sacrifice. The clattering of plates and the sizzling of bacon filled the air in Maplewood Diner, where every Friday night was a cherished culinary embrace. Emily, a 28-year-old waitress with warm brown eyes, served steaming plates of biscuits and gravy, feeling the weight of uncertainty press against her chest. Her heart often ached as she balanced her job with caring for her ailing mother, the town's beloved librarian who once spun tales that ignited imaginations. Now, her mother lay in a fragile state, forcing Emily to carry both love and sacrifice like a heavy load on her shoulders. That in her power to create small moments of joy, she would flirt with the sunbeams that streamed through the diner's windows. Yet, she could sense the community's eyes on her, dissecting her daily routine with whispers of how dreams seemed too far to grasp. She felt the chatter, the compassion mixed with judgment clinging to her, like a second skin. That was until he walked in. Derek arrived one rainy Friday, his dark hair slicked back, radiating a raw intensity that countered his mysterious aura. Townsfolk peered at him with curiosity and suspicion, wondering what a man like him wanted in a small town like Maplewood. He settled into a booth in the corner, the soft light illuminating his brooding expression. When Emily served him a generous slice of pie, their fingers brushed ever so slightly, sending a tingle through her heart. Over shared moments punctuated by laughter and easy conversation, a rare connection blossomed between them. She learned Derek was hiding from the gilded expectations of a life that felt foreign and suffocating. And he recognized something genuine in her, a kindness that ignited the tender spots in his heart that had long been dormant. With every stolen glance and silent smile, Emily's world seemed to shimmer with possibility, but, just as their bond deepened into something beautifully real, shadows crept in. The town's whispers took on a sharper tone, questioning why someone like Emily would associate with a brooding stranger. The relentless echoes of prejudice pierced Emily's heart, reminding her of her burdens to care for her mother. It was as if the very love blooming within her was fraught with the weight of her reality. Amid the chaos, her mother was taken to the hospital, stealing Emily's breath away. This was at the moment she would have to choose between a future filled with hope and the family ties that bound her. Frustration welled within her as she gazed at the dazzling turquoise decorations of the upcoming annual town festival. It had always been a time for joy, but for Emily, it felt like a battlefield fueled by fear. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With the festival looming closer, Derek prepared to unveil the truth about his past, a revelation that could bridge their worlds or tear them apart. But just as he stood on the brink, ready to confront his fears, the screams of panic erupted through the crowd. An elderly woman collapsed, drawing everyone's focus away from what could have been a defining moment. Caught in the whirlwind of emotions and communal chaos, Emily looked up at Derek only to find his eyes filled with a mix of dread and determination. Tensions were rising, and all she could think of was the love forming in the shadows of doubt. As a weight pressed upon her chest, she stood at the crossroad of her dreams, realizing that whatever choice lay ahead would change everything. Leaving readers anxious for the next chapter of a love story that transcended all boundaries. Emily's heart raced, overwhelmed by the intensity of the moment. The sudden chaos pulled her from her thoughts, snapping her into the reality unfolding around her. She felt the heat of the diner swirling with anxious energy, the clatter of dishes forgotten as everyone turned their attention to the elderly woman, now surrounded by concerned patrons. Derek's hand reached out, brushing against Emily's arm, pulling her focus back to him. The connection sparked between them, grounding her amid the noise. His expression was fierce yet tender, eyes searching hers, revealing a shared vulnerability. "We need to help," he urged, his voice low but urgent. Their instincts kicked in. They pushed through the crowd, maneuvering past tables until they reached the elderly woman sprawled on the floor. Panic flickered across anxious faces. Someone called for a medic, but in those few moments before help arrived, they took action. Derek knelt beside the woman, gently cradling her head as he checked for responsiveness. Emily knelt beside him, taking in the scene, her heart quieting in the presence of this unexpected ally. "It's going to be okay," she whispered soothingly, hoping her words would reach the lady's consciousness. The warmth of Derek's fingertips lingered on her shoulder, both a comfort and a reminder of how quickly the world could turn upside down. Minutes ticked by, and Emily fought off the urge to glance at Derek, afraid that the moment would shatter. The crowd's murmurs faded, all she could hear was the soft labored breathing of the woman they supported. With each breath that passed, Emily felt the threads of her world tighten around her mother, her dreams, her budding relationship. Finally, the medics arrived, their calm authority slicing through the tension. As they took over, Emily caught Derek's gaze, their eyes locking in a moment of shared understanding. An unspoken bond of strength and fear flickered between them. It was sewn tightly by their commitment to help, but it also exposed the fragility of their circumstances. As the ambulance drove away, sirens echoing in the distance, Emily noticed the crowd began to disperse. Where laughter and chatter once filled the diner, a quiet hush replaced it. Should we go back?" she asked softly, her heart still pounding from the chaos and the fear of what could be happened. Derek hesitated, then shook his head. "I think we should really talk. About everything." His voice held a tremor of resolve that sent shivers down her spine. Emily's heart fluttered, balancing on the precipice of hope and uncertainty. As they stepped out of the diner, the cool night air wrapped around them, a stark contrast to the warmth brewing inside. She knew they stood on a threshold of change, and the festival decorations around them only highlighted her internal conflict. "Derek, what about your past? What are you so afraid to share?" she asked, the words tumbling out before she could stop them, hot with urgency and worry. He paused, running a hand through his hair, as if gathering fragments of his thoughts. "It's complicated. It has to do with why I came here and why I don't know if I can be the person you deserve." Emily's breath caught. He was right, there were layers she didn't understand yet. But the sweetness of what they had created felt too precious to break over shadows from the past. Just when she thought he would open up, the sudden crack of thunder rumbled overhead, followed by sheets of rain pouring down. In an instant, they were both soaked, the world around them becoming a blur of water and emotion. "Let us get somewhere dry," she shouted over the rain, adrenaline mixed with the heartache of what lay ahead. With a shared look of determination, they ran through the downpour, leaving everything behind in search of shelter. The storm echoed their inner turmoil, yet amidst the chaos, something deep in her stirred a glimpse of hope. Amidst the turbulent storm, what awaited them in the next moments could either fracture their bond or solidify it deeper than either ever imagined. Would they find the safety they sought in one another, or would the weight of their unspoken truths drown out the flickering hopes of love in the rain? As they dashed through the rain, Emily's heart thundered in rhythm with the storm. Each drop was a chilling reminder of the chaos that had just unfolded inside the diner. She glanced sideways at Derek, his clothes clinging to him, revealing the powerful lines of his frame. There was something beautifully raw about him in this moment, but the doubts in her mind loomed like dark clouds. They spotted an old, shuttered bookstore at the end of the street. "In there," she yelled, pointing. She could see the faint outline of a door, a potential refuge from the storm. With a shared nod of understanding, they sprinted toward it, laughter bursting out of her, a mix of relief and adrenaline, mingled with the ridiculousness of their soaked state. Pushing the door open, they tumbled inside, immediately greeted by the musty scent of paper and ink. The dim light flickered from a few hanging bulbs, casting a cozy glow. To Emily, it felt like entering a time capsule, eerily quiet compared to the chaos outside. She took a moment to gather herself beneath the threshold, letting the storm rage on while she caught her breath. Derek leaned against the wall, running a hand over his wet hair. A shy, boyish grin spread across his face, despite the serious undertones that had lurked between them moments before. "You think we look ridiculous?" he asked, trying to lighten the mood. "I think we look like we just escaped a flood," she replied, laughing as she wiped rain from her eyelashes. The moment broke the tension, allowing her to breathe more freely. But even in that lightness, the weight of their conversation lingered, stubbornly unaddressed. Settling on a nearby couch, the weathered leather-soaked but still inviting, Emily motioned for Derek to join her. "Okay, serious talk time," she said, trying to capture the warmth still bubbling in her chest. "What do you mean you're not the person I deserve?" He shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting around the room as if fetching answers from the bookshelf-lined walls. "I guess I don't want to burden you with my past. What if it's part of who you are? Like a puzzle piece? I want to understand." Silence enveloped them like the storm outside. Emily watched as he closed his eyes, exhaling deeply, fighting with a storm of his own within. It's just that he finally turned to her, his voice raw and unfiltered. "I've made choices. Bad ones. And I'm afraid they'll define how you see me." Emily's heart sank, realization washing over her. "We all have mistakes, Derek. But they don't determine who we are right now. Do they?" He challenged, his gaze piercing. "What if I'm not strong enough to face those demons?" The vulnerability in his voice shook her more than the storm outside. Emily reached out, grabbing his hand, clutching it tightly, grounding herself in their shared moment as if their connection could shield them from everything else. "You're stronger than you think," she whispered, feeling the electricity spark between them again, but before Derek could respond, the sound of thunder roared so loudly it rattled the glass. The rain pulled heavier against the window, and the storm seemed to match their escalating emotions. "They say storms never last forever," Emily said softly, both to comfort him and herself. "And when they pass, the sun shines in a way you didn't expect." "I hope you're right," he murmured. The tension was palpable, hanging thick in the air between them. Just then, the door creaked open slowly, a gust of wind pushing it ajar. Emily's heart raced again, not from fear, but from the sudden thought that the storm may have washed away their fragile truce. Who could be entering? She stood up, curious, as the figure in the doorway emerged, their shadow backlit by the flash of lightning. Hello?" A voice echoed in the stillness. Emily's stomach dropped. The last person she expected to see stood there, drenched and wide-eyed, her own heart's history slipping quietly through the door just as Derek's past dared to step forward. What would this encounter bring to the surface? Would it deepen their bond or force secrets back into the shadows? The storm outside faded slightly, but inside, everything surged to a tide that felt just as wild and tumultuous. Emily's breath hitched as the figure took a step forward into the dim light of the bookstore. Rain dripped off her shoulders, creating a small puddle at her feet. It was Clara, Emily's childhood friend. Her face was a mix of shock and confusion as recognition dawned in Emily's heart. "Clara," Emily breathed, her voice barely above a whisper. Memories flooded back, laughter, whispered secrets in sleepovers, and shared dreams of the future. But just as quickly, the sharp pang of guilt twisted in her stomach. Clara had moved away years ago, and Emily had always felt a kind of heaviness about how life had pulled them apart. Now, here she was, soaked and seemingly lost amidst the storm. "Hey, Clara said, her voice slightly shaky, as she took in Derek's presence beside Emily. "What are you doing here?" We were caught in the storm," Emily stammered, unsure how to explain the emotional whirlwind that had just unfolded moments before Clara's unexpected arrival. It felt as though their world had shattered into fragments like glass, sharp and jagged. Derek stepped forward, breaking the silence, a softness in his voice. "I'm Derek. Nice to meet you." He extended a hand, but Clara glanced between them, her brow furrowing. It was clear she sensed the tension thick in the air, the unspoken words left hanging between Emily and Derek. "Nice to meet you too, I guess," Clara replied, looking at them both and sensing the storm inside rather than outside. Emily felt a knot tightening in her throat. "What about you, Clara? What are you doing here?" Clara hesitated, seeming to weigh her words carefully. "Just visiting. I thought I'd find a place to wait out the rain." I was hoping to check out some old books. She forced a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Something flickered in Derek's gaze as he glanced between Emily and Clara, the protective instinct kicking in. He shifted slightly closer to Emily, a gesture that made her heart swell but also bubble with complicating feelings. I didn't expect to run into anyone, Clara said, seeming to sense the change in atmosphere. It's just well, I thought I'd explore old haunts. Her voice quivered for a moment, and Emily sensed something deeper in her tone, like a hint of old wounds barely healed. Yeah, it's strange being back, Emily said, her heart racing, unspoken words taking form, battling with the promise she'd made to Derek about allowing the truth of his past to surface. We all change, don't we? Clara looked at her sharply, understanding rushing in as if they were sharing an unspoken language. Tell me about it, she whispered, a hint of vulnerability breaking through. Derek stepped back, sensing the shift but not quite grasping the complexities beneath the surface. The bookstore felt too small, as if the walls themselves were pushing in, clad in shadows and echoes of both their pasts. Emily, Derek started, but the unmistakable urgency in his voice was snatched away by another rumble of thunder. I need to think, Emily blurted out, panic rising within. She turned toward the back of the store, desperate for clarity in the chaos. Wait, Clara called, but her voice was lost in the surge of fear and confusion gathering in Emily's heart. As she turned a corner, the warm glow of the bulbs dimmed behind her, enveloped in a haze of emotions that felt almost suffocating. The moment was stretching thin, and in the silence that followed, Emily closed her eyes, feeling the walls closing in. Outside, the rain poured harder, the storm ebbing and flowing, much like the emotions swirling inside her. Secrets were swimming closer to the surface, each more daunting than the last. What awaited her when she turned back to Derek and Clara? Maybe today wasn't just about running from the storm. Maybe it was a chance to confront everything she had stowed away inside. But as she took a deep breath, a chilling realization hit her: not everything hidden can stay buried forever. What truths lay ahead, waiting to clash with the remnants of old loves and hidden fears? Would she choose the path toward honesty or retreat from the waves threatening to drown her? Emily pressed her back against the cool, textured wall of the bookstore's narrow hallway, the rhythmic sound of raindrops ghosting through the windows nearby mixing with the wild pounding of her heart. She felt like a tightrope walker teetering on the edge. One wrong step could send everything crashing down. The memories of Clara rushed in, uninvited but unavoidable, her laughter, the late-night talks, the way they used to share everything without fear. How could she have let all of that slip away? Each fleeting thought only twisted the guilt deeper. It wasn't Clara's fault they were kids, and life had a way of pulling them apart like tides. Emily drew in a breath, trying to steady herself. She had promised Derek honesty, but how could she be honest when so much remained unsaid? Just outside in the store's main area, the storm threatened to invade her thoughts. She heard Clara's voice mingling with Derek's, but the words were muffled, lost beneath layers of unmet emotions. Emily. Derek called softly, his voice cutting through the haze. She hesitated but sensed the warmth in his tone, a tether pulling her back from the edge. I'm here, she replied, her voice shaking. She turned to face them, her pulse quickening as she stepped out of the shadows. Both Clara and Derek looked at her, their expressions woven with concern. Clara's eyes held unspoken questions, while Derek's came with a gentle reassurance. He took a step closer, his features softening, yet there was a hint of something fierce right beneath the surface. Are you okay? Derek asked, his sincerity washing over her like a wave. Emily nodded, but the truth felt more complicated than that simple gesture could convey. She could feel Clara's gaze probing through the veil of her mask, making her heart race. Would Clara sense the truth, the broken pieces of who she once was? Listen, I know this is all sudden, Clara said slowly, her voice barely above a murmur, but it's just so strange to see you again, especially like this. Yeah, Emily said, fighting back the tidal wave of emotion. I know. It's like trying to unearth something buried deep. I didn't expect to face. She waved her hand between the two of them, pasts, present, and the tangled rawness of their connection, so much. Derek's eyes flickered with understanding, as if he saw the storm brewing inside her. We can talk about whatever you need, Emily. You don't have to hide. The dam inside her began to crack, the truth threatening to spill over as she remembered every secret moment shared with Clara, the heartaches, the triumphs, the unfulfilled promises of youth. But here they were, older and perhaps wiser, but still battling with old wounds. I'm scared, Emily admitted, her voice trembling. What if I can't piece everything back together? What if I can't face my past? As she spoke, Emily noticed the shadows flit across Clara's face, like memories sparking beneath the surface. You don't have to face it alone, Clara said gently, offering a lifeline. We've been through so much before. Maybe we can figure this out together. Emily's heart swelled with hope, but along with that hope came fear. Was it really possible to reconnect after so long? Did they still understand each other? The uncertainty sat heavy in the air, and she could feel Derek watching her, willing her to trust in the space between them. Then the unthinkable happened. The lights flickered ominously as a gust of wind rattled the windowpanes. In that moment, something shifted. The secrets, the heartbreak, the love that had gone unspoken, they all surged to the surface. And suddenly, in the dim glow of the bookstore, a realization struck Emily like lightning. To move forward with Derek meant facing all that had been left behind with Clara. Could she truly embrace a new love while unearthing the remnants of the past? As the storm raged outside, Emily took a small step forward. Okay, let us talk, she said slowly, feeling a mix of courage and vulnerability bubbling within her. Would this choice lead them to healing or tear them further apart? The uncharted waters of her heart felt treacherous, and as they gathered together, she sensed that whatever happened next would change everything. It was a choice to either mend the past and risk the present, or walk away and let the waves of old connections wash them away again. What awaited them in a chain of secrets waiting to unfurl? Emily felt the weight of the moment pressing in on her, its gravity pulling everyone closer to the edge of something significant. The air crackled with anticipation, the sound of rain hammering against the storefront giving a rhythm to her heart. Clara's gaze lingered, a swirling mix of nostalgia and apprehension reflecting back at Emily. What do you want to say? Clara prompted gently, breaking the silence that felt both welcome and suffocating. That question echoed in Emily's mind. What did she want to say? What needed to be spoken first? I need to be honest, Emily began, the words tumbling out despite the tremor in her voice. There were things I never told you back then, things I buried because I was scared. And now, it's like the past is clawing its way back in. Tell me, Clara urged, her voice barely above a whisper. The sincerity in her eyes held a mirror to Emily's own fears, each word a lifeline tossed into dark waters. I regret losing us, Clara. Everything felt so raw and real, and suddenly, it was all gone. I thought distancing myself would help, but instead, it just left a void I tried to fill with other things, she said, glancing at Derek momentarily, whose supportive presence calmed her frayed nerves. Fill it with what? Clara's bluntness cut through the emotional fog, and Emily saw hurt sift through her expression. I don't know. I thought I could just move on, forget about it all, Emily confessed, her heart racing. But every time I thought I had, something would remind me of you. Of us. Clara looked down, her fingers nervously playing with the hem of her shirt. I've also missed you, Em. It hurt when you left. We had this bond, and then it felt like it just disappeared. Derek interjected, a subtle firmness in his voice, maybe it's not too late to rebuild that bond. Honesty is a powerful step. His words encouraged Emily, but also made the tension tighten in her chest. Taking a deep breath, she pressed forward. I've also been thinking about touching things that I didn't want to touch before, like how I felt about you back then. The admission hung in the space between them like fog, thick and pregnant with possibilities. Clara's eyes widened slightly, a flash of vulnerability crossing her features. You felt something for me? Yes, Emily replied, her voice gaining strength. I thought about it a lot, especially when everything spiraled. And part of me regrets not being honest about it. Tension ebbed as Clara processed the weight of Emily's words. I thought I was alone in feeling that way. I didn't want to push you. I thought you changed. I don't want us to dwell on the past anymore, but I don't want to deny it either. We might still be able to be friends. The word felt flimsy, dangling precariously in the air. The silence that followed was thick, as if the storm outside held its breath, too. It was Derek who broke it, gently placing a hand on Emily's shoulder, a small gesture that felt monumental. It's okay to want to reconnect, to be honest, to revisit feelings that are tangled. It's okay to do it together. Clara's expression softened, the fierce edge around her softening. You're right. Maybe we can navigate this together. Emily's heart fluttered with a mix of relief and uncertainty. Together? Could they really work through the intricacies that had driven them apart? It felt scary, exhilarating, and the idea left her dizzy. But before she could respond, another gust of wind slammed against the windows, rattling the books on the shelves. It was a warning, like life was reminding them of the storm raging outside, both in the elements and in their hearts. I still have so much to say, Emily whispered, glancing between Clara and Derek. Then let us start there, Clara said, pulling the air a little closer. And as the first thunderclap resonated overhead, Emily realized that the past may not just rise to haunt them but could be the very thing that brought them together again. What if healing instead created something stronger among them? But unearthing secrets often came with further consequences. She could feel the heaviness creeping back in. In that moment, she understood that while choices were shifting, the storm both outside and within was far from over. Derek, you're okay with all of this? She asked, feeling the weight of the moment twist again. As the rain poured harder, racing down the windows, Emily braced herself for anything that might come next. Would they sink or float as they ventured deeper into the unknown? Emily held her breath for a moment, the world receding as she focused on Derek's response. His brow furrowed, and she could sense the whirlwind of emotions just beneath his calm exterior. I just want you to be happy, he replied slowly, his voice steady yet gentle. If that means exploring old feelings, then I'm here for you. But you need to be sure about this. Emily felt a flicker of gratitude stir within her. Derek had always been her rock, grounding her during storms, both literal and metaphorical. Yet, this new dynamic between them felt like stepping onto shaky ground. Would her honesty fracture their bond, or could it strengthen it? As the wind howled outside, Clara shifted closer, her eyes locked onto Emily's. Whatever you decide, Em, I want you to know I'm open to seeing where this goes. We've never really had a chance to explore what we could have been. The words hung in the air like the scent of rain-soaked earth, fresh, alive, but also heavy with the weight of uncertainties. Emily could feel their shared past wrapped around them, binding tighter with every moment she hesitated. I need to tell you both something else, Emily said, surprising herself with the sudden urgency in her voice. I've changed over the years, but I still carry parts of who I was back then. I'm scared. What scares you? Clara leaned in, seeming to sense Emily's turmoil. Emily let out a shaky breath and continued. I'm scared that reconnecting could break us again, that it might unearth more pain than joy. Friendships can crumble under the weight of unspoken things and lost time. Derek glanced toward Clara before responding, but maybe the real risk is not trying. If we stay silent, we could miss out on something amazing. That's the thing, Clara interjected, her voice earnest. We've already lost so much time. Life is too short to live with regrets. We owe it to ourselves to see where this could go. Emily's heart raced at the possibilities, yet doubt gnawed at her. Navigating this delicate terrain of old wounds and new revelations felt like walking a tightrope. The stakes were high, and so were her feelings. I want to explore this too, Emily finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. But I need to know, can we all handle it? Can we really face whatever comes next together? Clara reached out, brushing her fingers against Emily's hand, grounding her with warmth. We can, Em. We'll face it as a team. Together. With Clara's touch sending electric sparks up Emily's arm, she looked at Derek, searching his eyes for affirmation. Instead of the apprehension she feared, she found a peaceful determination reflected back. Then let us take this step, Derek said softly, his eyes brightening with resolve. Just as they began to embrace this shift in their relationship, a loud clap of thunder echoed outside. Rain pelted the windows with renewed ferocity, drumming a chaotic rhythm against the walls, mirroring their emotional storm. Emily's mind raced. She felt simultaneously exhilarated and petrified by the freedom of choice ahead of them. The trio stood at the brink of a new chapter, but the murmur of something deeper lingered beneath the surface. Secrets were waiting to be revealed, and uncharted current emotions swirled around them like the tempest above. Before we dive in, she hesitated, a flash of concern crossing her face. Can we really go back after all this time? Can we change the way we were, or are we just fooling ourselves? As the thunder rumbled like a warning, Emily's heart thudded in her chest. What would they uncover? Could they find a way to reshape their past into something meaningful? The storm outside continued to rage, but Emily knew the real tempest lay just ahead, and with it came both the thrill and fear of transformation. Let us find out, said Clara, her voice steady and resolute. In that moment, Emily understood it wasn't just about navigating the past, it was about carving a new future together. With that thought settled in her heart, she took a step closer to the edge of their complicated journey. What would dawn from this? Reckoning. The downpour outside seemed to intensify the gravity of their situation. Emily felt the air shift around them, charged with unspoken emotions and possibilities. She could see it in Derek's eyes, the weight of what they were about to attempt. It felt monumental. Okay, she finally breathed out, her voice breaking the tension. Then let us take this step together. There was no turning back now. The decision hung like a heavy curtain before them, dark yet full of anticipation. The rain pounded relentlessly against the windows, but within the cozy confines of the living room, warmth radiated from their collective resolve. Clara squeezed Emily's hand a little tighter, letting her know, without words, that they were in this together. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page, Derek said, his tone shifting as he leaned closer. We have to communicate honestly. Feelings might change, and it's okay, but we need to talk about everything. No keeping secrets, right? Right. Emily nodded, grateful for Derek's straightforward honesty. Her heart ached with the intensity of the moment, and the thought of being vulnerable both thrilled and frightened her. Clara's eyes sparkled with determination. Let us just take it slow. We can start with little things, dates, maybe. Just hang out and see how we feel. Yeah, Emily added, surprised by how much she craved the idea. We can take our time. No pressure. Just see where the road leads us. Exactly. Clara beamed, her enthusiasm infectious. Laughter mingled with the sounds of the storm as they shared stories from the past, reliving old memories that had shaped their bond. Yet, with every fond recollection, Emily felt the shadows of their previous misunderstandings looming over them, reminding her of the pain they once shared. As the laughter faded, silence wrapped around them, heavy with anticipation. Emily could feel an electric energy buzzing in the air. She needed to voice what had been eating at her since the chance of this rekindled relationship appeared. Okay, but what happens if we dive into this and it doesn't work out? Emily asked cautiously, vulnerability creeping into her words. What if we lose each other again? Derek took a deep breath, searching for the right words. Then we figure it out. Together. Every relationship has risks. The real loss would be not giving this a shot at all. His voice rolled over her like the steady rhythm of the rain, helping her to steel herself. Emily shifted her gaze to Clara, whose earnest expression mirrored her own fears but also offered hope. Besides, Clara added, her voice bright. The journey is just as important as the destination. If we learn something about ourselves along the way, it will be worth it, right? Emily felt the tension in her chest start to loosen. They were choosing to embrace the unknown, and that realization gave her a glimmer of courage. Yeah, you're right, she finally confessed, a tentative smile forming on her lips. But just as the air began to lighten, a piercing flash of lightning lit up the room, followed by a deafening crack of thunder that sent them all jumping slightly. They shared a laugh, the unease replaced with shared exhilaration. Okay, so let us make a pact, Emily suggested, her voice steadier now, a promise to keep communicating, no matter what. No rehashing old problems, only constructive conversations. Agreed, Clara said quickly, her eyes sparkling with excitement. As they sealed their pact with a circle of hands, Emily felt a new bond form between them, wrapped in trust and hope. But waiting just beyond the walls of uncertainty was the reality they needed to face. As the rain drummed a steady beat outside, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that the storm had just begun. What lay ahead would challenge their newfound connection. Would they flourish or buckle under the weight of past shadows? As Emily squeezed her friend's hands, she couldn't help but wonder, what would it take to truly reconnect in a way that was meaningful? It was only the beginning, and a part of her was terrified of what it might all mean. The wind howled outside, sending sharp gusts that rattled the windows, but Emily was barely aware of the storm anymore. Her heart raced, caught in a whirlwind of emotion. As she glanced at Derek and Clara, she knew they were crossing into uncharted territory, and with every heartbeat, excitement mingled with fear. It's all going to be okay, Clara said softly, reading Emily's expression. Just remember, we're a team. Each step we take brings us closer. Emily tried to nod reassuringly, but there was still a lingering doubt. What if they stumbled? What if unspoken words and hidden feelings resurfaced? They had always been more than friends, so much more. The dynamics of their relationships were complex and fragile, like glass teetering on the edge of a table. I think we should plan something fun for our first outing, Derek suggested, shifting away from the heavy atmosphere. How about a movie night? Something light, maybe a rom-com to keep things easy. The suggestion brought a giggle from Clara. Perfect. You always pick the cheesiest ones. I'm a sucker for a happy ending. Derek laughed, and Emily felt the warmth of shared history flood back into the room. It was these moments that had held them together in times of uncertainty, and perhaps it was this joy they could lean on now. Okay. A movie night it is, Emily smiled, feeling buoyed by the thought. But even as she smiled, an uninvited memory crashed into her mind, the last movie night they had shared, right before everything fell apart. Once again, the bittersweet taste of nostalgia had its grip on her heart, reminding her of the stakes involved. As the rain poured harder, they fell into a rhythm of planning, exchanging ideas, and tossing around favorite snack options. But deep down, Emily worried. The lightheartedness felt good, but every smile carried the weight of their unresolved past. Just how much had they healed in these moments? Just how deep were the wounds? Hours passed, filled with laughter, but as the night wore on, the joy felt almost deceptive, glistening above an abyss of uncertainty. As they settled into a more contemplative mood after a particularly touching story swap, Emily heard a soft voice murmur in the back of her mind, were they really ready for this? Hey, can I ask something? She ventured, her heart pounding against her ribs. What if we all start sharing our fears? Like, what scares us most about this new journey? A challenging silence overcame them. They had dived into light-hearted plans so effortlessly, yet this question lingered like a thick fog. Each of them seemed to consider the weight behind it, their eyes searching for answers among the stormy night. I'm scared of losing what we have, Derek finally admitted, breaking the silence. Our friendship has meant everything to me. I don't want to ruin it. Clara nodded, her expression serious. Yeah, and I'm afraid of not being enough. What if one of us gets left behind? Emily felt the weight of their revelation settle into the room. She realized they were staring into the shadows of insecurities that needed light. For me, I think it's knowing that the past is still there, you know. I want us to be able to trust each other more than we ever did before. The storm outside crescendoed, making the air feel electric. Emily could feel raw emotions swirling around them, and a sense of intimacy enveloped the trio as they opened up. They shared not only fears but also dreams, aspirations, the kinds of things that had been lurking in the corners of their minds, but just as a thick blanket of understanding seemed to warm them, another crash of thunder reminded Emily of the storm brewing both outside and within their hearts. Could they truly face what lay ahead? As they sat together, vulnerability cloaked them like a shield. Emily whispered a silent hope that perhaps every truth they unveiled could lead them further into the light. But as the rain lashed against the windows, she couldn't shake the feeling that deeper truths still lay hidden. The looming question still hung in the air: what would be the breaking point that revealed their true strength? Would they rise above or crumble just like the thunder that shook the walls around them? The storm outside had reached a fever pitch, the rain pounding relentlessly against the windows. Inside the dimly lit bookstore, a different kind of storm took hold. A tempest of feelings, hopes, and fears surged between Emily, Derek, and Clara. Each heartbeat echoed the thunder outside as they collectively bore the weight of their pasts and the fragile threads of their rekindled connection. As Emily's voice hung in the air, she felt a tremor of vulnerability weave through her. "I've always been scared that things might go back to how they were, fractured, broken. But maybe it's worth stepping into the unknown together." Derek leaned forward, the determination in his eyes cutting through the tension. "Together means we face everything as a team. That includes the storms, the secrets, and the struggles. But it also includes the joy, the laughter, and the love. I want that. I want you, both of you." Clara caught Emily's gaze, reading the conflict in her eyes. "What if our fears are shadows? We can't let them dictate our choices. This is a chance to redefine our paths, Em." Emily's heart raced. It felt like walking a tightrope, every word, a step closer to clarity. The warmth emanating from their hands linked her spirit with theirs, fostering hope despite the weight they carried. "Okay," Emily breathed, leaning into a moment of courage. "Let us promise to communicate. No secrets, just honesty." With a nod of agreement, they formed a circle, their fingers entwined, sealing their pact with an unspoken promise. The world outside continued to rage, but within their sanctuary, a different kind of calm began to take shape. "Right after our movie night, we can have another discussion. Let us maybe dive into our histories a bit more," Derek suggested, a flicker of excitement lighting up his eyes. The storm rumbled outside as Emily took a breath to steady herself. "Then, let us look forward instead of getting lost in what held us back." The laughter that followed opened a tender space, allowing them to slip into familiarity, yearning to be reborn. They reminisced about childhood dreams and forgotten aspirations, and as the memories tumbled out, so did the laughter, filling the air with lightness. As hours slipped by, the storm finally began to wane. The inevitable warming light of dawn spilled color across the horizon, breaking through the clouds that hung heavily above the town. Emily felt her heart lift alongside it, a spontaneous smile spreading across her face as Clara and Derek shared a goofy moment with leftover popcorn from their movie snacks. "Here's to new beginnings," Clara exclaimed, raising her half-empty drink like a toast. "New beginnings," Derek echoed, the warmth in his voice that melted away the lingering shadows of doubt. But even as they reveled in the moment, Emily sensed an undercurrent of unspoken truths still swirling in the air. "So, how do we move forward from here?" she asked, her honesty sweet like the morning sun. Derek's expression softened, his vulnerability surfacing again. "We keep being real with each other. Sometimes, it might be uncomfortable, but it's necessary." Clara nodded in agreement. "And we support each other, even when the shadows creep back in. Healing is never linear." With a renewed sense of purpose, Emily took a step back, surveying the two who had become anchors in her life amidst turbulent waves. She felt a fierce determination rise as she recognized the beauty of their commitment, knowing deep down that love wasn't just a destination but a journey molded by the trials they faced together. Alright then, let us take it one day at a time. Who knows what beautiful change awaits? She proclaimed, a newfound strength washing over her like the dawn breaking outside. As the sun rose higher, casting a warm glow on their little refuge, they stood together, resilience shimmering beneath their promises. The storm would always be a part of their stories, but it was a new chapter unfolding, overflowing with possibility, trust, and love that was stronger than before. Emily felt the shift within her, a heart that beat for hope. More than fear. And as they stepped out into the fresh morning air, the drenched streets glistening in the sunlight, Emily took Clara's hand and allowed Derek to guide her forward. Together, they ventured into the world, ready to face whatever may lie ahead, trust between them blazing bright as the dawn. If you're still here and enjoyed this transformative journey, you need to subscribe now. Don't wait not even one more second to hit that bell and mark all notifications so you never miss these exclusive stories. Leave a like now to help feed the algorithm. Your support makes a difference. And comment below with your feelings about the ending. I'd love to hear from you. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Let us spread the love.